head. 24,000 pounds. Dell, that's almost, well, after the cost of the fans, that's a 15,000-pound profit in a single afternoon. Told you, didn't I? Rogers. Dell beamed, slapping the dashboard of the Capri. The chairman knows his onions. But then Rodney looked in the rearview mirror. A cloud of black smoke was rising from the Diptford warehouse. Dell, why is George's warehouse smoking? It's just the dust, Rodney. The fans are so powerful, they're clearing the decades of grime. It's a cleaning service as well. We should have charged him more. Chapter 16, The Legacy. They didn't go back to the warehouse. They didn't answer the phone for 3 days. Apparently, the military surplus fans had a slight design flaw where the motors would overheat if run for more than 10 minutes, and the turbochill had eventually turned into a turboflam. Fortunately, Greasy George had managed to douse the small fires with a fire extinguisher before any real damage was done. But the deal was definitely off. At least we got the deposit, Dell muttered, sitting on the balcony as the sun set. We had to give it back. Dell, Rodney said, standing beside him. And we had to pay for George's eyebrows to be professionally trimmed since the sparks took most of them off. They stood in silence, looking out over the flickering lights of the city. The 40,000 pounds was still in the bank, safe and sound. The Phase 2 office was currently being used by Damien to build a fortress out of cardboard boxes. You know, Rodney, Dell said, his voice soft, we're not millionaires. We're probably never going to be millionaires again. Not the real kind, anyway. I know, Dell. But look at us. We've got the flat. We've got the family. We've even got a managing director who knows how to use a stapler. Dell looked at his brother and smiled. We're the luckiest blokes in Peckham. Rodney looked at the yellow van parked in the lot below. It looked small and battered, but it was there. Yeah, I suppose we are. But listen, Dell said, his eyes beginning to sparkle again. I was talking to a bloke in the pub today. He's got a connection in Singapore. Apparently, there's a surplus of slightly mislabeled, but perfectly edible, canned ham. With Christmas coming up, we could. Dell! No, listen, it's a gold mine. Rodney, this time next year. The argument faded into the night air, a familiar melody that had echoed through the halls of Nelson Mandela House for decades. The millions might have come and gone, and the deals might have sizzled out, but as long as the sun rose over Peckham, the trotters would be there trading, laughing, and dreaming of the next big win. Bon mot. The yellow van might be old, and the engine might cough, but as long as there's a road ahead and a deal to be made, the trotters will always be driving, because they're not just traders, they're survivors, and in the heart of Peckham, that's the greatest fortune of all. The Trotter Chronicles, From Gold to Grit, a novelization by Gemini. Prologue the man in the sharp suit. The air in the office was thick with the scent of expensive mahogany and the faint, clinical aroma of high-end air purifiers. Justin, a man whose skin looked like it had been buffed by a professional at a Swiss spa, leaned back in his leather chair. He adjusted his glasses, looking at the two men sitting across from him. One of them, Derek Delboy Trotter, was a man who looked like he belonged in a very different kind of office one, with a calendar of a local garage on the wall and the lingering smell of cigar smoke and hopeful desperation. Del was dressed in what he considered his business best, a suit that shimmered just a bit too much under the fluorescent lights, and enough gold jewelry to make a pirate blush. Next to him sat Rodney, younger, leaner, and perpetually looking like he had just realized he'd left the oven on at home. Rodney was sweating, not the confident sweat of an athlete, but the cold, clammy moisture of a man who knew his brother was about to say something that would embarrass them both for the next century. "I've got all the basic details about your business career," Justin began, his voice smooth and devoid of any Peckham grit. "But what I'd like to do is to get an insight into the real you. How you started, how you became so successful, but more importantly, your lives and your raison d'etre." Del Boy's eyes lit up. He didn't know what a raison d'etre was, but it sounded French, and in Del's world, French meant class. "Oh, no," Del whispered to Rodney, "Laboratory Garney." Rodney closed his eyes and prayed for the floor to open. "It's not Laboratory Garney. Del," he hissed, "he's asking for our reason for being." "Exactly what I said. Prove," Del snapped back, before turning to Justin with a smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo and then charge him for the delivery. "Well, Justin, where shall I start? Up to a few years ago, we were just very ordinary people living, well, very ordinary lives, weren't we, Rodney?" And so the story began. A story of a watch found in a garage, a fortune made in an instant, and a fall so spectacular it made the Hindenburg look like a minor fender bender. Chapter 1: The Caribbean Dream. The sun over Barbados didn't just shine, it announced itself. It turned the turquoise water into a sheet of diamonds and the white sand into something so bright it hurt to look at without designer sunglasses, which, of course, the Trotters were wearing. Only a few months prior, the Trotters had been living in a council flat in Peckham, wondering if the hooky VCers they were selling would last through the first reel of Rambo. Then came the watch, an 18th century Harrison marine chronometer hidden in their garage for decades. It had sold at Sotheby's for £6.5 million. In an instant, Derek Trotter, the man who once sold one-legged turkeys at Christmas, was a multimillionaire. "Look at this, Rodney," Del had said, leaning over the balcony of their private villa. He was holding a glass of something blue with a miniature umbrella in it. "Total luxury. This is what we were born for. Mange tout, Rodney,